Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Matt Bernier. The post positions for the Kentucky Derby have been drawn. Let's take a look at them. And Matt, really the big news coming out of the post position draw is that the major contenders, they're very comfortable where they are. Morning line favorite Justify in post position 7. You can argue Bob Baffert is thrilled with that spot. He's outside of a couple of other speeds, and Mike Smith might be able to find a great spot passing under the Twin Spires the first time.
Yeah, agree 100%. I don't think Baffert and company have any sort of concerns about breaking from post 7. Maybe, I suppose, it's a little bit more toward the inside than they would like, but I have to be honest, when you look and see that the main speed seems to be drawn to the inside, I don't see any reason why Justify doesn't work out. I hate to use this horse as the comparison, but doesn't it just feel like he could work out an American Pharoah kind of trip where he's sitting 3 or 4 paths off the rail, stalking some horses that he might just be better than, and then he should have every opportunity, if he breaks alertly, to get the job done on Saturday.
Given an alert break, you have to think that the number 3 Promises Fulfilled and Corey Lanerie are going to try to make the lead and the rail. You know that Flame Away and Jose Lizcano, they're going to be trying to go out there to press the pace. Bravazzo and Luis Contreras, their best running style, perhaps to press the pace. Now we have to talk about Todd Pletcher's horses that drew in the auxiliary gate. We've got the 16 Magnum Moon, we've got the 18 Vino Rosso, we've got the 19 Noble Indy. These outside post positions might be problematic for pressers like Magnum Moon and Noble Indy because they could be forced wide while chasing a hot pace. And as for Vino Rosso, is really the only plan now to take back, and now he's got to work out a trip.
Yeah, I kind of feel like Vino Rosso, sure, it's not ideal, but at least with him, you kind of figured he was going to be mid-pack, and he's going to lose a little bit of ground, but distance I don't think is going to be a problem for him. I think the other 2 horses, those are the ones that now all of a sudden the decisions are a little bit more important, let's say. Magnum Moon is a horse, sure, he's been forwardly placed in Arkansas, but he's been up there on some pretty soft paces. So I kind of figured he was going to get a little bit outrun anyway. I think the interesting one now is Noble Indy, because with Noble Indy breaking from post 19, he's a horse that usually does his best running when he's more forwardly placed. I think if you're Florent Geroux and Todd Pletcher, obviously, I think you've got to be intent on sending out of there to try to establish some sort of position, because if you don't, not only are you going to be mid-pack, but you're probably going to be 6-7 paths wide. I think that horse, all of a sudden, if you want to say that there's one horse, if I had to give you one that I think kind of loses out of the draw, it's probably Noble Indy.
So you can foresee a situation where Florent Geroux is really intent on hustling Noble Indy out there, and then Luis Saez on Magnum Moon probably follows him along, but sort of ends up in the 2nd or 3rd flow.
That's kind of the way that I'm drawing it up anyway in my head, especially when you consider the horses that are surrounding or in and around them, whether it is a Vino Rosso, who we know who's going to be probably more mid-pack, if anything. Solimini, Baffert has made it clear, we're just going to kind of grab him, take him back, and try to make a run. And you got Combatant on the far outside. I don't think there are a ton of other horses that share similar running styles toward the outside, and I suppose if you want to use that as a sort of a silver lining if you're a Magnum Moon fan, I think he should be able to work out some sort of a decent trip, hopefully following his uncoupled stablemate.
Some fans of the 5 Audible and the 6 Good Magic not thrilled that they're so close to the inside, but I actually think this position will work out well for both of these horses. Let's begin with Audible, who draws outside 2 speeds, Promises Fulfilled and Flame Away. And if Audible gets away well under Javier Castellano, he probably can establish a position without getting herded too far towards the inside and the rail. And the same with Good Magic, because Good Magic is just inside of Justify, who figures to go. So there might be a little bit of a vacuum. The 2 horses breaking inside of Audible and Good Magic, the 1 horse breaking outside of Good Magic going to the front, and maybe these 2 could cluster in right behind without getting into too much traffic.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those. It's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, they need to break. If they don't break, they're up against it in a major way, because you are going to have that throng of horses trying to come over. But I kind of feel like with the speed to the inside and then Justify just to the outside, they should have a pretty clean go of it if everyone breaks alertly and goes on with it. You also have Flame Away down in there as well, and I think Flame Away could be a key. We'll talk about him in a bit, but I feel like Audible and Good Magic, if they break alertly and do kind of what they're supposed to do, they should be able to take up a decent enough position. And hey, look, anything can happen. We'll find out on Saturday, but I don't think just at the post position alone, I don't think they really lose anything.
Mick Ruiz has to be pleased with the number 11 spot for Bolt d'Oro. This is a horse that we know has a versatile running style, is comfortable from mid-pack. He's surrounded by closers like My Boy Jack to his inside and another mid-pack runner like Enticed. With a good break, Bolt d'Oro is probably just likely going to let the speeds go. He's not going to be 20th early. He'll be in mid-pack, and then it's all about not losing too much ground or not getting stopped.
Yeah, I would have to imagine that the connections are hopeful that you get a trip similar to that of the Santa Anita Derby. Just this time around, maybe Justify has to work a little bit harder. And then possibly that seasoning that you have with the bottom with Bolt d'Oro and the distance, I don't think is going to be a problem for him. I agree. I think he's going to be probably mid-pack. You're in a pretty good position in the middle of the starting gate. If he breaks alertly, there's no reason to think that he shouldn't work out a decent trip.
Dale Romans was not happy with the post position drawn by Free Drop Billy, the number 2, 30-1 under Robbie Alvarado. Free Drop Billy is a horse that could be placed closer to the pace, but now with the speeds right next door, him drawing post position 2, it just seems like a situation where he's going to be in behind a lot of horses going into the first turn.
Unfortunately, I kind of feel like Free Drop Billy, sure, he's going to be sort of that one-run closer, but it's so difficult when you've got to deal with everyone trying to come over on you. I almost wonder, are you better off just entirely conceding and just letting everyone try to clear off and hope that this thing just turns into an absolute stagger fest down the lane and you can come along and clunk up for a piece? Those inside posts, we all talk about the one post, but 2 and 3 are no bargain either, especially if you are one of those horses that's not either brilliantly fast early on or you're not just that dead one-run closer. He's in a tough spot here. I didn't like his chances coming into it. I don't particularly love them coming out of it.
Let's talk about the second choice on the morning line now. That is the number 14, Mendelssohn. He is in the outermost portion of the main gate, which means there is a little bit of a gap between his stall and the first stall in the auxiliary gate. European horses have a tendency to break slightly slowly. We haven't really seen that too much with Mendelssohn. What do you think about this position with that gap? Does it help Mendelssohn? Does it hurt him? Or does it really not make any difference whatsoever?
Well, I think the conventional wisdom, I believe even Wayne Lucas talked about it in the draw, leading up to the draw anyway, that the beautiful thing about 14 and 15, you get a little bit of a cushion on each side of you, either the outside or the inside. But then some people on Twitter have already alluded to the fact that, well, look, we thought Classic Empire was going to be in a beautiful position last year, breaking from 14, and he ended up getting completely cleaned out, basically, out of the gate by all the horses from the auxiliary coming over. I think the benefit for a horse like Mendelssohn, you brought up the gate situation. I don't think he's your typical European. He seems to be one that can break alertly and be forwardly placed and establish some position. I also think it's helpful that the horse is drawn to the outside, perhaps with the exception of Noble Indy. There aren't any real big speeds on that outside. So I have a feeling if he breaks alertly with Ryan Moore, I think he's just faster than everyone else. Even if they try to come over, he's probably already going to have a little bit of position established ahead of them. I have to be honest, I don't know that you could ask for much more if you're in the camp of Mendelssohn. And if he breaks alertly and establishes position, doesn't he sit just outside of Justify going into that first turn? That's at least the way that I'm looking at it.
And I think that's the way Ryan Moore's looking at it as well. The break is the key. Classic Empire, we saw he didn't get out there very quickly, and the next thing you know, he was slawed off from the outside by the crush of horses on the auxiliary gate. If Mendelssohn can break and establish position, and horses like Magnum Moon and Noble Indy are likely to be sent out of there, at least at a good clip from the far outside to get a spot, that'll be okay for Mendelssohn. But if he breaks a little bit slowly, perhaps then he'll be pinched in behind horses and he'll get that dirt kickback for the first time, which is what I'm sure Ryan Moore is not looking forward to. Let's talk about a possible pace projection for this race. I think we agree that the 3 Promises Fulfilled is on a send. I think we agree that Mike Smith would love to be just outside of Promises Fulfilled and or Flame Away. Both of those horses figure to be forwardly placed. Who else do you see contesting the pace, if anyone?
Yeah, I have to be honest, I really think it's kind of interesting where we figured that Promises Fulfilled would be the pace setter, but when you consider a horse like Flame Away, who we know he likes to be forwardly placed, I think he's going to be sent right out of there as well. So I suppose there's a scenario where Justify could be stacked up a little bit going into that first turn, maybe 3 or 4 paths off the rail. But again, I don't think the connections would feel too bad about that. I think those are going to be your 3 horses that are most forward. Then it depends on what they do with Noble Indy. Are they intent just really trying to get him forwardly placed? If that's the case, maybe he's sitting there in 4th. If it's not him, I know a lot of people, we talk about the difference between speed in Dubai and speed here in the United States. Keep in mind, the fractions, don't take those at face value because there's a difference with the run-up and all that kind of stuff when they start the clock. Mendelssohn is not a slow horse. He sat just off of 22-4 in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. I think he's going to be right up there. I can't imagine him coming from mid-pack. I think he's going to be in the head of that second flight. And if that's the case, he should work out a decent trip as well.
So if he works out a decent trip in second, again, just to recap, promises fulfilled, flame away, justified, perhaps occupying the first three spots. You see Mendelssohn, you see Noble Indy, maybe Magnum Moon sneaking in there into the second flight. Now we go back to the third flight, the mid-pack horses. Horses like Audible, horses like Good Magic, horses like Bolt d'Oro. I think the way we've planned this out right now, everyone's happy with their position.
100%. I think if this is how the race is run on Saturday afternoon, going into that first turn and even turning onto the backstretch, I don't think anybody can complain about where they'll be. Now, look, it's not always that easy. We've seen crazy things happen. Horses break slowly, they break in, out, whatever it may be. But if everybody takes up those sort of positions, I think everyone's going to have to just look at it and say, we've had a fair shake. And you know what? If we're good enough, we're good enough. If not, it is what it is. I think this would be a situation and a scenario that everyone involved with each one of these horses would sign up for right now.
Post positions drawn for the Run for the Roses, the Kentucky Derby, and now it's a waiting game, hoping these horses stay safe and sound before they get into the gate on the first Saturday in May. Stay tuned to DRFTV all week long for picks, analysis, the latest breaking news, and the latest workout reports.